Within the first couple weeks of Pot of Desires being released, I actually bought a playset for $200, and at the time, that was about $30 to $40 under market value. I ended up taking it, or I ended up playing the three Pot of Desires in one UDS deck, four regional decks, and countless deck profiles. The reprint was recently announced. We all knew it was going to come out in Megatons. I mean, it's a chase card. I would also expect things like Dimensional Barrier to be in there as well, just like Solemn Strike was last year. And we all knew it was going to be there, but we didn't know it was going to be a promo card, and that affects its price a lot. Right now, if you haven't seen the excellently made Market Watch on Pot of Desires, it has totally crashed in terms of value. I think it went down $20 within just a couple hours. And today I wanted to talk about whether or not I regret my decision, especially considering I never took it to a YCS or anything bigger than a regional, because I think it's important to talk about a card that was pretty much the first chase card I've ever paid full value for. I've spent money on ultimate rare versions of a lot of like bad deck cards, but those tend to remain their value or retain their value over the years. I mean, the Crystal Beast cards that I have that are ultimate rare that I've had since 2011, those haven't gone down in price and have actually gone up in price. Or like the volcanic stuff I have has sort of fluctuated, but it's maintained pretty steady. But with a card like Pot of Desires, and there's these cards every single year, you know that it's going to go down in price for one of two reasons. The first one is that over time, as more enter circulation, it's just naturally going to go down in price. This happens with any card. Obviously, the first edition printings of cards usually maintain at least some of their value, more so than the unlimited versions when the special edition packs get released and when the unlimited versions of the boxes get released. But over time, as more people go to regionals where these packs are being given out, more copies of the card are pulled, so there's just more for people to buy, thus driving the price down. Also, the biggest reason that cards like this go down are because they get a reprint. In olden days, these reprints would usually come in tournament packs. The reprints that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has used over the past decade or so have been changing. They used to just be in like Dark Revelation packs where you saw a huge reprint set of like hundreds of cards. Then we had like the raw yellow pack and the Jaden pack and all those. I can't even remember what those are called. Were they called mega packs? I feel like they weren't. Maybe they were. Did they just use the same name? Why do I never research anything before these fucking videos? The packs that were sort of like the precursor to the Megatins that came with like one of each rarity of a card, and those came with a lot of reprints as well. But tins so far, especially the Megatins, have been the way to reprint everything a year after the release. Well, for some of the cards, it's a year after the release. Some of them, it's like a year and a half. But basically, the Megatins, every single year, we can guarantee at least as long as they're going to be around. It looks like we're going to year 3 of them being around, so I would doubt that they would change that formula for a while now, because it seems to work. People love Megatins a lot, because, I mean, the first one, it was a big deal that all the Shadal stuff, all Satellar Knight stuff, Dante and stuff like that was being reprinted, and the second one, Solemn Strike, was obviously huge. Magispector, Bumboko, cards that were really, really expensive heading into there, and then when they got reprinted, they do not maintain their value, and they usually bottom out with around 1/4 of value. For a lot of the cards that were under $10, though, they go down to like $1. So it totally kills their value. The Solemn Strike is actually interesting because it's one of the few cards that has maintained its value in terms of the Mega Pack and the Bosch ones. For a while, were actually both the same price. It has since changed where the Bosch ones are more expensive, but for a while, and especially because they're both secret rares, they maintain the same value. Anyway, I usually don't buy these cards because, like I said, I don't go to a ton of events. The most YCSs I ever went to in a year were 3, and in all of those, I didn't play. I actually wrote articles at them, so it's not like I needed the cards anyway. But I don't really go to a lot of YCSs. It's not really. I mean, if any of you are in like college, you might know, especially if you have jobs to maintain and stuff. It's just not really feasible to go to YCSs a lot of the times. Flights, you usually have to go pretty early on Friday, and you're expected, I mean, ideally you want to come back on Monday, but if you have classes on Monday and Friday, that's kind of difficult, so you end up not going. So I don't go to a lot of YCSs, but I go to a lot of regionals. And with Pot of Desires, my thought process was that I worked a lot over the summer. I wrote a lot of articles, and I had enough extra spending money to just not really care about if the price was going to tank, and I didn't know what events I was going to. Not a lot of YCSs had been announced at that point, so I just went ahead and bought them. I didn't really care. That was my splurge of the summer in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's the first of these chase cards that I've really paid for full value. I didn't go to a lot of events. That one UDS and the 4 regionals, and then some locals, and using some deck profiles. And I have to say that I personally feel like I did get my money's worth out of them. When the reprint was announced, like I said, so it's different when the reprint is actually in the tins versus as a promo in the tins, because the promo in the tins guarantees that everyone gets it. Where if it comes in the tins, usually it doesn't go that low. I don't know how low the Secret Rare Pot of Desires would go. I would say similar to Perform Pill Pendulum Sorcerer, it's probably going to go really low. I don't know, if like $10 or $20, possibly $30. It's tough because it's right now it's not really being played in a lot of things, so it wasn't very expensive already since Zoo came out, but I know going forward, obviously, Pot of Desires is a card that will pretty much always be good at some point, as long as a deck like Zoo isn't out, where it needs every single resource of a certain card. But yeah, I don't regret buying it. I think it was really good at all the events that I played it in and continue to play it in. I think Fluffles this past regional were the first rounds that I've played in a really long time without Pot of Desires, and it was interesting because I did miss it. And when my opponent resolved Pot of Desires against me, I thought, wow, I really do like that card. But yeah, I think Pot of Desires was, at least for me personally, someone that had expendable income. I think it was a good buy, and I think that if you go in with a mindset that, $200 on cards is really expensive because it's just going to get reprinted anyway, it's like, yeah, but it gets reprinted in like a year. And when you buy a card like, Pot of Desires is different than Perform Pill Pendulum Sorcerer, or a card like Tour Guide from the Underworld that was like really fucking expensive for like a year. Maybe you guys weren't playing 2012, but Tour Guide was like hundreds of dollars. But Pot of Desires and cards like Solemn Strike, I think, are like a good buy, just because you can play them in so many different decks. I played it in everything from Skyforge Shuffle BA to Phantom Knight Zombies to Magnet Warriors to Skull Servants. It reminds me a lot of Omega, another card that I invested into 2 copies. A card that has currently not been announced for a reprint. I know Crystal Wing got announced for a reprint. I know Minerva got announced for a reprint. Omega currently has not been announced for a reprint. I am pretty certain that it will show up as a reprint soon, as well as Breaksword. And it's like I don't mind spending money on these cards because I can use them in so many different decks. And I would say, even if you're going to just a couple YCSs, if you're going to YCSs back when Desires was like everyone was playing 3, then yeah, of course it was like a good buy. And especially as someone like me that's sort of a semi-competitive player. I like to consider myself a competitive player, but it's like, can I really consider myself a full competitive player if I'm not going to YCSs? That's sort of up for debate. That's something you'd have to decide yourself. But if you have the disposable income and you just are holding out in Desires, how many events did you go to where you were playing a suboptimal deck just because you didn't have a card that let you draw 2 cards for free when your opponent did? And yeah, I think this is a good thing to reflect on because I've never really done this before, and I would say in the future I probably would do it again. I know that the Link monster that like bounces cards, and I'm sorry, I'm not really good on the Link monster names because I'm not super into the OCG metagame. But the Link, I think it's, I actually can't even try to pronounce. I know that I knew it at one point, but the Link guy that like is used in basically all the combos, that'll probably be a secret rare, and that'll probably be very expensive. And I don't think I mind investing money into it because I feel like that's a card that, much like Desires and much like Solemn Strike, will be able to be played in a lot of different decks and a lot of different rogue decks especially. Desires made so many rogue decks that I was playing not suck, and I really appreciated that. So it was cool. But yeah, these are my sort of reflections on whether or not I thought Pot of Desires was a bad buy. If you bought Pot of Desires when it was at its peak, I know there was like a time when it was like $100 a piece, but I think $200 to $250 was like the average going rate back when it was played in a lot of decks. If you bought it at that point, and still had them all this time. Let me know what you think about the reprint in the comment section below. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll get some fucking casuals saying, of course it was a waste of money. It's a neg 9. But they're really stupid, so don't listen to them. That's me telling future me to not listen to those dumb ass comments. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.